Hello everyone, welcome to Practically's NEET course. So I hope you had a great day today, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the anatomy of the flowering plant. Basically, today we're going to talk about the tissues. Okay, so we have talked a lot about, till now we have talked a lot about the plants, the different part of plants. Okay, we have talked about the roots, the stems, the leaves, the flowers, reproduction, everything we have talked about till now. Okay, basically we have talked about the morphology. Before that, we have talked about the kingdom of plant, the kingdom of animals. Okay, we've talked about microorganisms, so many things. Okay, but today this class is totally dedicated to the tissues. Now, why tissues? Okay, we have talked about plants. We are basically in the botany part. We have talked about plants, what plants are made up of. It started with roots, and we have talked about fruits and seeds, etc. But tissues are actually the anatomical parts. Okay, the insides. Okay, what these parts are made up of. What we've talked about roots, stems, etc. But what are these roots and stems made up of? Okay, they're made up of cells which come together and work as tissues. Okay, so tissues provide the mechanical support, the nutrition, everything, okay, is supported by the tissues only. Okay, so let's start. Now, before I start, I'd like to just say that if you have any doubts, I'll be checking on my phone. I'll be checking the chat part. Okay, I'll be checking the chat box. If you have any doubts, just put it in the chat box and I'll try to solve all your doubts. Okay, so let's start. Now, before that, let me talk a little bit about Practically. We are from Practically and we are India's first experiential app which runs for 6th grade to 12th grade. Okay, and we have a lot of simulations. Every day there is something new getting added in the app. Okay, so it's very interesting and you can test your knowledge as well. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Okay, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Okay, so let's talk about tissues. Now, what is tissues? We know when we were talking about the kingdoms, okay, plant kingdoms, animal kingdoms, we always knew that cells are there. Okay, each cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Hai so cells, they come together and form tissues. Okay, so cells, they come together, suppose a lot of cells are there. Okay, they'll come together and they'll become one tissue. Okay, so this is what tissue means. A tissue is a group of cells having common origin. So all of these cells are from the common origin and usually they perform a common function. Okay, so they have a common origin, as in they'll be structurally and functionally they'll be almost same. Okay, and they'll have a common function. Okay, now the function can be anything. They can be a mechanical function, they can be nutritional function, they can have support function, any function. Okay, so they'll have a common function. And a plant is made up of a number of tissues. Okay, there is simple tissue, there's complex tissues, xylem, phloem, so many things are there. So they are made up of different kinds of tissues. Okay, and tissues are mainly divided into two groups. There is meristematic tissues, which actually grows continuously, they'll be growing. Okay, and there is the permanent tissue, which are non-growing. Okay, these do not grow, they are there. Okay, they are providing the the support, but they're not growing anymore, they're not dividing. Okay, so these are the permanent tissues. Okay, and as you can see in this diagram, okay, so plant tissues are there. We have learned about the different parts of plant. We have learned about the leaves, we have learned about the stem, we have learned about the roots. Now these leaves, stem and roots are made up of different kind of plant tissues. Okay, There's xylem and phloem. Okay, there is vascular tissue, cambium, meristematic, dermal tissue. So many things are there. Okay, so today we're going to learn about these tissues. Okay, again, if you have any doubts, please just leave it in the chat box. Okay, so as I said, there are a lot of different kinds of tissues. Okay, so the first, as I said, the first division will be, 1 second. Okay, so the first division will be meristematic and permanent. So as I said, meristematic, it keeps dividing. Okay, it keeps dividing. The permanent one does not divide. These are permanent in nature, so they won't divide. Okay, now meristematic, again, they will be divided into 3 different kinds. Okay, there is apical, there is intercalary, and there is lateral. On the other hand, the permanent ones will have simple, such as parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, and they'll have complex, such as xylem and phloem. Okay, so remember these things. These are very important from botany. Whenever you talk about NEET, whenever we talk about NEET, we get a lot of questions, especially from xylem and phloem. Okay, so xylem and phloem are very favorite topics of the people who are setting the questions. Okay, so you can always expect either 1 or 2 questions are coming from this part. Okay, so we'll talk about each of these things. We'll talk about the meristematic, apical, intercalary, lateral. We'll also talk about simple, complex, xylem, phloem. We'll be talking about everything today. Okay, so the first is the meristematic tissue. Okay, so the growth in plants is largely restricted to the specialized region of active cell division called meristems. As I said, they keep dividing. Okay, so they are not present everywhere. Okay, they are restricted to some specialized regions. So they'll be only growing in some specialized regions. Okay, because this has to divide, no? So only specialized regions can be growing. In Greek, meristos means divided. So directly, whenever you talk about meristos, okay, that means divided. It's dividing. Okay, it consists of thin, undifferentiated cells capable of division. See, these cells are thin, okay, and they're undifferentiated, and they're capable of dividing. And cells in the meristem can develop into all other tissues and organs that occur in the plant. Suppose there's a plant and some primary consumer is eating it up. Some goat or some cow is grazing on it. Okay, so and grazes on it and goes away. So it is the plant's job to actually cover that wound. Okay, so that is a wound for them because they got eaten up. So it is the plant's job to get covered that wound, and that job is done by the meristematic tissue. Okay, so these cells continue to divide until a time when they get differentiated and lose ability to divide. Till a point of time only they'll divide, not whole life they won't divide. Okay, so till a point of time only they'll divide, but they'll keep dividing. Okay, so their purpose is to keep dividing. Okay, so types of meristem, we discussed this just before this. So there is primary meristem, which are apical and intercalary, and there is the secondary meristem, which is the lateral one. So there are 2 types of meristematic tissues. One is the primary, secondary. Basically, there are 3 types: apical, intercalary, and lateral. Okay, why are we dividing this? Let's see. First is the apical meristem. This meristem occurs at the tip of roots and shoots. Okay, any kind of root, they'll be growing, they'll have apical meristem. So roots, any kind. Okay, shoots and produce primary tissues are called meristem, apical meristems. So whenever you talk about the word apical, that only means that end of it. Okay, so root apical meristem occupies the tip of a root, while the shoot apical meristem occupies the distant most region of the stem axis. See, so this is the root meristem. Okay, here. So this is from the place from where it keeps dividing. Okay, and here this is the shoot meristem at some distant most region of stem axis. They'll be dividing. Okay, so whenever they're dividing, whenever they're increasing, that will be from here. Either this is root and this is the stem. Okay, during formation of leaves, elongation of stem, some cells are left behind from shoot apical meristem constitute an axillary bud. Okay, so when they're left behind from the meristem, they form buds. Such buds are present in the axils of leaf and capable of forming a branch or a flower. So sometimes they leave and go in the other direction. So what will happen to that left part? That will become a bud. Now this bud will give birth to another part. Okay, it will either become a branch or either become a flower. That depends on it. Okay, so left behind cells, sometimes they become buds and they form into a branch or flower. Okay, as I said, they're always dividing, they're always growing in some form or the other. Even if some of it is left behind, they'll still try to grow into some parts of the tree. Okay, so next is the intercalary meristem. Okay, this meristem occurs between mature tissues. Okay, so as you can see in this thing drawing, what happens is, suppose this is a bamboo stem or something. So they'll have some mature tissues. Okay, and in between these mature tissues, they'll have some tissues which will grow. So these are the not this one, these parts are the intercalary meristem. They occur in grasses and regenerated parts removed by grazing herbivores. I just said, suppose there is some cow or some goat eating from a plant. Okay, they'll eat it off. Now to cover that wound, that will be a wound, right? So to cover that, intercalary meristem occurs. Okay, so that is the job of intercalary meristem. Then there is lateral meristem. This occurs in mature regions of the shoots and roots of many plants, particularly that produce woody axis. So mostly lateral meristem kind of is because it is secondary. So they occur like later than the primary one, and mostly in woody plants. They have a wooden bark. Okay, plants, trees which have a wooden bark, lateral meristem occurs in them only. They are cylindrical and fascicular, vascular cambium, interfascicular cambium, cord cambium. Okay, so these cambium cells, okay, cambium cells are the ones which are form of lateral meristems. Okay, so here you can see, suppose this is a wooden bark. Okay, at the outside you can see some cells. That is the cord cambium. Here also outside there is some cells. So this vascular cambium, interfascicular cambium, cord cambium. So cambium based cells like parts are produced by lateral meristems. Okay, and they are responsible for the producing of the secondary tissues. They are secondary tissues. Primary was apical and intercalary. Lateral is always secondary. The The name itself means secondary. Lateral means what? Coming after, later. So secondary will always be lateral. Okay, so these are the lateral meristems. Again, if you have any doubts, any questions, please let me know and I'll try to help you out. Okay. Okay. So next, permanent tissue. Till now we were discussing about the meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue, what did I say? Meristematic tissues means they'll be dividing. Okay. Permanent tissue is what? Permanent tissue will not divide. Okay. So the cells of the permanent tissue generally do not divide further. Non-dividing. Okay. Permanent tissues have all cells similar in structure and function are called simple tissues. And permanent tissues having many different types of cells are called complex tissues. So when, as I said, cells together, they make tissues. Okay. So when cells are all similar kind of cells, they are simple. All similar kind of cells are aggregating together, they become simple tissue. Now, when cells are a bit different, somebody is round, somebody is elongated, somebody is a bit thicker, somebody is a bit thinner, like that, that becomes complex tissues. Okay, similar cells aggregating, simple. Similar cells, like a different kind of cells aggregating, complex. Very easy. Okay, so simple tissue, okay, can be divided into three kinds. There is parenchyma, collenchyma, and there is sclerenchyma. Okay, so parenchyma, first is parenchyma. Parenchyma forms the major component within organs. So this is one of the majorly used tissue. Majorly used tissues. Okay, the cells of parenchyma are generally isodiametric. Here, isodiametric. Okay, they may be spherical, oval, round, polygonal, or elongated in shape. Any kind of shape they might take. Okay, but the tissues will have, all cells will be similar, but they can shape, these cells can be of any type, round, oval, polygonal, elongated, anything. Okay, and they are thin and made up of cellulose. Okay, they may be either be closely packed or have small intercellular spaces. Here, see, they're very closely packed and they have some intercellular spaces, very little intercellular spaces might be there. Okay, and they perform various functions like photosynthesis, storage, secretion. See, that is why it is major, right? Plant ka like proper function is what? Photosynthesis. That is why plants are plants, right? Because photosynthesis, they are the producers. Now that job is being handled by this tissue, the parenchyma. Okay, so this is the longitudinal section. The lengthwise section, it looks like this. They have nucleus, cytoplasm. They basically proper cells, proper plant cells they are. Okay. Now comes collenchyma. Okay. So each of them, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, they have different functions. For parenchyma, it was photosynthesis. What happens in collenchyma? Let's see. Collenchyma occurs in layers below the epidermis in most of the dicot plants. Okay, just there are epidermis are covering. Just below that, there'll be the collenchyma. It is found either as a homogeneous layer or in patches. Will either be just layer after layer homogeneously it will be, or it will be one patch, another patch, like that. It consists of cells that are much thickened at the corners due to deposition of cellulose and hemicellulose and pectin. That one was only cellulose. This has a lot of things. This has cellulose, This has hemicellulose. And they have pectin. Okay. Now, collenchymatous cells may be oval, spherical, polygonal. So, this also same like parenchyma only. They can be of any shape. All same shapes, but any shape. Okay. And they assimilate food when they contain chloroplast and intercellular spaces are absent. There are no intercellular spaces. You can see there are no spaces in between. They're densely packed. Okay. They are densely packed. Okay, and if they have chloroplast, then only they'll be doing photosynthesis, otherwise not. Those cells have the chloroplast. Okay, so they'll be doing photosynthesis. This is not mandatory. Mostly what they do, they provide mechanical support to the growing parts of the plant, such as young stem, petiole of a leaf. Their basic function is the mechanical support. That is their basic function. Okay. Next. Now there is Sclerenchyma. Okay. So those cells are a bit similar in nature. Okay. But Sclerenchyma, as you can see, is totally different. Sclerenchyma consists of long, narrow cells with thick lignified cell walls having numerous pits. See, they have pits in between. You see, there are gaps and everything in between. They're usually dead without any protoplast. There's no protoplast, there's no organelles. Okay, so they're dead. So how will they have organelles? Okay, so no protoplasts and dead. Sclerenchyma may be either fibers or sclerids. They have fibery nature. Okay, they can be like this or they can be like this. Okay, the fibers are thick-walled, elongated and pointed cells generally occurring in groups. So it will basically look like this. Okay, and various parts of the plant. The sclerids are spherical, oval, cylindrical, highly thick and dead cells with very narrow cavities. Okay, they have cavities and they have pits. Okay, this is a bit roundish in nature because they're sclerids. These are commonly found in the fruit walls of nuts, pulp of fruits like guava, pear, sapota, etc. And they provide mechanical support to organs, mostly in this is fruit related. Okay, so they are very thick in nature. That support, mechanical support, can be taken out by this one because they're so thick in nature and they're dead. Okay, there's no organelles, nothing happening in it like photosynthesis and all, nothing is happening. They're just basically providing the mechanical support. Okay, so let me see. Okay, now complex permanent tissue. Now complex, I was talking about simple. What was simple? Simple was basically where cells were similar kind. Okay, simple tissues which had similar kind of non-dividing cells. That was simple. Now, when it comes to complex, what happens? There are numerous different kind of cells. They come together to form a tissue. Okay, the complex tissues are made up of more than one type of cells, and they work as a unit. So, as I said, there might be a spherical one, there might be an elongated one, there might be some nucleated one, there might be nucleated one, like that. So, these different cells work as a unit. Okay, and the main thing, as I said, the xylem and phloem are these kind of cells. The complex permanent tissue is xylem and phloem. Okay, so here see, these are the different cells, etc. In the middle, they'll have phloem and outside they'll have xylem. This is how it looks. Basically, phloem and xylem, this is how they look. Okay, let's see. First, we'll be discussing about xylem. So xylem, basically what it does, it conducts tissue for water and minerals. So xylem conducts only water and minerals, nothing else. That's all. They only takes out water and minerals. And they also provide the mechanical strength. And as I said, they'll have different kinds of cells. They have the cells such as tracheids, vessels, xylem fibers, and xylem parenchyma. Gymnosperms, they lack the vessels. Okay, gymnosperms are not like angiosperms. They're not that developed. Okay, so they lack the vessels, but basically they have tracheids, vessels, fibers, and parenchyma. The parenchyma we had in this thing also, remember? Parenchyma we also had in the simple tissue. We have it in the xylem complex tissues as well. Okay, so first is the tracheids. Tracheids are elongated tube-like cells with thick lignified cell walls and tapering ends. This is how tracheids look, almost like a worm. So this is how it looks. These are dead and are without protoplasm. No organelles, no nucleus, no nothing. Okay, so these are dead. The inner layer of the cell walls have thickenings which vary in form. See, we have this inner layer. You see like this. We have inner layers. So they are in various forms. And in flowering plants, tracheids and vessels are the main water transporting animals. That is their job. They transport water. Similarly, as tracheids, we have the fibers. Okay, fibers kya? Fibers have highly thickened walls and obliterated central lumens. These may either be septate or aseptate. See, this is how a fiber looks, almost like a tracheid. Okay, so they might be aseptate or septate, means they might be aseptate like this, no separations. Or they might be like this also. Like this also they might have septates to separate. And then there is xylem parenchyma, are the living ones. These are living. Those were non-living. This is living, thin wall, and cells are made up of cellulose. Okay, so this is the parenchyma. They store food materials in form of starch or fat or any other substances, and the radial conduction of place takes place by the way of parenchymatous. This is conducting water. Okay, conducts water. Okay, next is the vessel. Is a long cylindrical tube-like structure made up of many cells called vessel members. Each of them are lignified walls and a large central cavity and perforated cell walls. They have perforated cell walls with swelled up cell walls. They have. Okay, these cells are also devoid of protoplasm. They don't have protoplasm. They are dead cells. Okay, and they are interconnected through perforations in their common walls. They are interconnected. In the presence of vessels is a characteristic feature of angiosperms when it's a developed thing. Okay, developed plant like angiosperms have vessels. Okay, so the gymnosperms, they don't have vessels, whereas they have tracheids and other things like parenchyma and everything, so that they can take the water up and out, but they don't have the vessels. Okay. Next is the protoxylem. Why are we discussing about protoxylem? Because these are so important. Protoxylem is the first kind of xylem. We are talking about the kind of xylem developed from the procambium of the primary stem and root. Okay, the main distinguishing feature of it is the presence of narrower xylem vessels. Okay, so you can see here, these are the protoxylem. Okay, the cell wall thickening of the conducting elements of it's primitive in nature. These thickenings can be ring shape or helical shape. Okay, cell wall thickenings of the conducting element. These cells can extend in order to undergo elongation and growth. Okay, and in the stem of seeds, plants, protoxylem occurs in the center of the stem, and the future development of the xylem occurs towards periphery. So in the stem, what happens? Suppose this is a stem. What happens? The center of the stem, like protoxylem occurs in the center. Okay, and future development occurs goes towards the periphery, goes outwards. Okay, but when it is in the roots, okay, it is just the opposite. It grows in the periphery and tries to come in the center. Okay, following the exarchation of the xylem development. So when it is in the cell, when it is in the stem, it will be growing towards the periphery, from the middle to the periphery. When it is the roots, it will be growing from the periphery to the middle, just the opposite. And apart from that, there is also metaxylem. That is a type of primary xylem that develops after protoxylem. Okay, cells are fascicular cambium differentiate into the cells of metaxylem, and in contrast to protoxylem, the main distinguishing factor is the wider xylem vessels. So they are wider, you can see here clearly. These are narrower and smaller, whereas metaxylem is a bit bigger and wider. Okay, they are also in more advanced form. These can either be ladder-like transverse bars or can be continuous sheet except for holes and pits. Okay, so they can be ladder-like also, and they can be hole-like also, and differentiates in after elongation of stem and root, and therefore it is cells do not need to grow in size and further. These are the forming next, right? These are after the protoxylem, so it's not need, they do not need to grow in size any further. These are the last ones which are growing. Okay, in the stem of the seed plants, metaxylem occurs in the periphery, while in the root, okay, occurs in the center. And there are something called tyloses which are growing here. Metaxylem has something called tyloses. Okay, outgrowths of parenchyma cells into the lumen of tracheids and vessels, resulting in the occlusions in xylem response to injury or as protection from decay. Okay, so tyloses are results from injuries and decay. These are the ones which are actually forming after something, right? They're forming after the protoxylem. These are the last ones to be formed. So they're generally they are being formed after an injury or had been a decay or something. After that only, these are the ones which are fallen. So these are the differentiations between the protoxylem and the metaxylem. Protoxylem earlier formed xylem is called protoxylem, and the later formed is the metaxylem. Okay, they are smaller, they are bigger, matures before growth and differentiation of plants. Okay, matures after, because these are formed after injury or something, right? So after differentiation only. Tyloses, it should be L. Tyloses are absent in protoxylem vessels. Tyloses are present in metaxylem. Fibers are absent, fibers are present. These are bigger in structure, right? So they have fibers, whereas the protoxylem, they don't have fibers. Okay. Now the last one, the phloem. What is the difference between the xylem and the phloem? What happens here is, apart from water and minerals, okay, they also transport soluble organic compounds. Okay, so the food conducting, these are food conducting. Okay, tissue in plants is made up of living tissues that use turgor pressure and energy in form of ATP to transport sugars to the plants. Okay, to the organs such as fruits, flowers, buds, roots, etc. So they'll be taking the food, whatever is being made, they'll be taking it to the other parts of the plant. Okay, by like they'll be giving out some energy in the form of ATP. Okay, so there is energy involved when it's phloem. There is energy involved. Okay, so food is being made and then it is taken by the phloem to the different parts of the plant. Okay. Okay, let's see who is here. Hi Manoj, hello, welcome to the class. I hope you like it. And if you have any doubt, please let me know. Okay. Now, these are the components of the phloem. As I said, these are the complex tissues, so they'll definitely have different components. Okay, so these are the 4 components. Okay, there is sieve tube elements, sieve plates, companion cells, and phloem parenchyma. There was normal parenchyma, there is xylem parenchyma, there is phloem parenchyma. Each of these components performs functions by working together. These functions include facilitating conduction of sugars and amino acids from source tissues to sink tissues. So basically they work together. Okay, they work together. Okay, and they work together to conduct food and bring them to different parts of the plant. Okay, so this is what they do. First is the sieve tube elements. Okay, where is the sieve tube elements? Wherever you see a phloem diagram, no, you'll always see that they are all together. Okay, you cannot just take out one part and then put it in a diagram, because they're always together. They work together. Their work is together only. So they'll always be together. So this is the sieve tube element. Okay, are elongated and narrow cells that are connected to form phloem sieve tube structure. So see, this is a tube structure. Okay, so this hollow thing, tube-like structure. Okay, the elements lack nucleus at maturity and are also lacking organelles such as ribosome, cytosol, Golgi body. Okay, so they are basically not like very hollow, but they are kind of hollow in nature. Why they should be hollow in nature? Because they are tubes, right? This is from where the food is going. So they have to be hollow in nature. Okay, why? Because to maximize the available space for the translocation of the materials. And there are 2 main types of sieve elements. Both are derived from mother cell. So sieve members are found in angiosperms and sieve cells are associated with gymnosperms. So in different plants, they are different in structure. So if it's a sieve member, they'll be angiosperm. Now if it's a sieve cell, they'll be gymnosperm. Okay, so this is what that hollow tube-like structure is, the sieve tube element. Next, there are sieve plates. These are located in between the connection of the sieve member cells, which are modified plasmodesmata. See here in the middle, we plate-like structures. Okay, so these are the sieve plates. They are large and thin in structure. These are the areas of pores that help facilitate the exchange of materials between elements. So we have the exchange of materials are happening in the sieve plates. When phloem is cut or damaged, then in prevention of loss of sap, sieve plates are also acting as barrier. So when it gets damaged, when a phloem tissue is getting damaged, so these provide the protection. Okay. After injury, a unique protein called phloem protein or P protein, okay, which is formed within the sieve element, is released from its anchor site and accumulates to form a clot. These clots are present on the pores of the sieve plate and helps in preventing the loss of sap. So when there is a clot forming, okay, suppose something has damaged a phloem, so they release a protein called the P protein. And this P protein goes and sits on the sieve plate. Okay, and this is what provides protection. Okay, so this is one of the main purposes why sieve plates are there. This formation of P protein is sitting on the sieve plate so that it provides type of a covering. That is what the sieve plates do. Okay. Next is the companion cells. So the companion cells consists of a nucleus that is filled with dense cytoplasm, and the cytoplasm is made up of numerous ribosomes and mitochondria. So they are living, of course, because they have the protoplasm, they have nucleus, they have mitochondria, they have ribosomes and everything. Okay, so they are the companion cells, responsible for performing several metabolic reactions and other cellular functions. So the major act in a companion cell is the metabolic reaction. Okay, for function and survival, the sieve elements are dependent upon or need the companion cells. Okay, so function and survival, the elements need the companion cells because they have the organelles, they do the metabolic activity and everything. So they are one of the major components here. The transport of materials around the plant and to sink tissues is done by companion cells and also helps in the loading of sieve tubes with the products of photosynthesis. So transport, okay, transport, metabolism, translocation, from translocation as in one part of the other, everything has been done by companion cells. So this is one of the more major part of phloem tissue. Okay, so that's it. Now phloem parenchyma. Okay, that is the collection of cells which make up the filler of the plant. Basically they don't have a lot of functions, but these are the filler ones. Okay, they have thin and flexible walls that are made up of cellulose, and the main function is that it is present in the phloem for storage of fats, starch, proteins, the tannins, resins. So their main function is storage. Okay, there's no translocation and everything, that all happens from the tube. Okay, and the plates also help. Okay, companion cells, they are doing all the metabolic activities and everything. Parenchyma here does the storage work, storage of food. Okay, So that's it for today. And in the next class, we'll be discussing about the tissue systems and the other parts of the anatomy. Okay, we'll be discussing about the vascular tissues, etc. Okay, and see. Okay, we'll be discussing some little questions, and then we'll be done for today. Okay. So the following is the characteristic of Collenchyma. Collenchyma. These are the simple tissues. Okay. So they are elongated cells with thickened corners, isodiametric cells with thickened walls, elongated cells with deposit of cellulose and pectin, isodiametric cells with deposit of cellulose. Anybody wants to try? Or let me just answer it. These are the elongated cells. Okay, they are the elongated cells with thickened corners. They have no intercellular spaces. Okay, so that is the Collenchyma. Parenchyma, they have spaces. Even the Sclerenchyma, they also have, but these have no spaces. Okay. The apical meristem of the root is found in tap roots, radicals, adventitious roots, all the roots. Very easy this question is. Anybody wants to try? Okay. So the apical meristem of the root is found in all the roots. This is the first thing which I said. The apical meristem of the root is present in all kinds of root. Okay. Next, which of the following has a perforated cell wall? This also I said there is vessel, there is fiber, there is trachea, there is sclerid. Okay, so it is the vessel which has a perforated cell wall. None of these have a perforated cell wall. It's only the vessel which has the perforated cell wall. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming to the class. Okay, and if you have any doubts, you can actually ask me in the next class as well. And I hope you have a great weekend ahead. Keep studying and like, share, and subscribe to our videos. Okay, and do check out the app as well. Okay, see you later. Bye bye.